You're welcome to this week's episode. If you're watching for the first time, you're very welcome. My name is Chichi Ogbonnaya and this is my YouTube channel. Last week I talked about intro-dating, the importance of being comfortable in your own skin, understanding yourself as a single person, and also living a purposeful life as a single person. I also talked about the importance of being everything that we want to see in a partner, as opposed to listing out things we want our partner to be. You want him to be kind, you want him to be respectful, you want him to be transparent. I mentioned that it is very important that you begin to develop such quality character traits as a single person. There's no need, or it's really not wise for you to say you want certain things in an individual when you lack those things yourself. So it's important that as single individuals concentrate on developing those quality character traits that we want to see in the partner we will date or get married to eventually. This week I want to talk about who to date, because now that you're someone who's whole, you know the purpose for which you've been created. You don't want to date just a random person. You don't want to be bonded to the wrong person. I remember 2 years ago I attended a program, and one of the speakers was saying something that we don't get to decide who we are born to. You don't get to choose who your parents will be, but you have the power to decide who you bond to. So whilst you don't get to choose your father or your mother, you can decide who your husband or who your boyfriend should or would be. So today I want us to talk about the traits you should look out for in choosing a partner. And in partner now I'm talking about dating relationship and not even marriage. Also, I mentioned last week that there's this book by Miles Monroe, Waiting and Dating, and I really do encourage each and every one of us to get that book, whether you're single, married, in a relationship, engaged. There is something for you to learn from that book, Waiting and Dating by Miles Monroe. Look for it and read it. So the first thing you want to look out for before you decide to date a person is to be sure that they are spiritually and morally balanced. Spiritually and morally balanced. With spirituality, you're looking out for someone who is already born again, someone who follows the precepts that God has laid down in the Bible, someone who is spiritually sound, whose spiritual life is checked. And morally, I'm talking about the principles of good and bad. Like there's this thing my pastor says all the time, that you can't love without giving, but you can give without loving. With spirituality and being morally upright, there are some people who are morally upright but they are not spiritual. But the truth is, you can't be a spiritual person and not be morally upright. Let me give you an example. There are people who say, oh, they can't cheat on their girlfriends. Not because they know that in the Bible it is wrong, that eventually when you marry that girlfriend, it is wrong for a man to cheat on his wife, that adultery or fornication is a sin. It's just something that they feel as an individual they don't want to do. That's someone who's morally upright. But a spiritual person knows that the Bible is against fornication, that the Bible is against adultery. A morally upright person might not have a problem with you having sex in your relationship, for instance. But a spiritually sound person knows that the Bible clearly warns against such, that God is against fornication, that as people who are not married yet, you're not supposed to be engaged in any form of sexual activity. So understand it. You want someone who is both spiritually and morally balanced. Secondly, you want to look out for someone who is intellectually balanced. You don't want to go out on a date with someone who can't hold his end of a conversation. Back in school, one of our lecturers would tell us that it is very important for every human being on earth to know something about everything. At least know one thing about every subject that we have around. You're talking about sports. Nobody's saying you should know the entire 11 players on the team, but at least you should be able to name 1 or 2 people on the team. It's not like somebody is saying Mercy and you're like, Mercy, is it the mercy of God or what? Or they are saying Man United and you're saying, is that a country or something, you know? So you should have an idea of every topic that is brought to the table. So read wide. Thank God for Google. I mean, there's nothing that you can't find on Google. Everything you need to know about something is on Google. So Google, search, do research, find out things, ask questions, read books. So you want to date someone who's intellectually balanced, because you're going to be going out to events, the both of you are going to hang out with friends, and discussions are going to come up, and you want to be sure that this guy you're dating, this girl you're dating, can hold his or her end of the conversation. Also, you want to date someone who is socially balanced. You don't want to date someone who's uptight. You want someone who's flexible. I know not everybody is an extrovert. Some people are introverts, but the truth is there's a limit to how extreme people should go. You know, so the fact that you're an introvert doesn't mean when you're out at a social gathering you don't relate with other people or you're hostile towards other people. You know, learn to be flexible regardless of the personality traits that you have. I remember back in school, I used to have this male friend. We were just friends, and whenever other male friends came around, he would really be hostile towards them, and he would just say that his countenance would change and he would start reacting in a very funny way. I didn't like that, you know, and first I was like, we're not dating, we're not married, and you're acting this way towards my other male friends, you know. So you don't want to date that kind of a person. I understand that it's okay to some extent to be jealous, you know, but it's unhealthy when it's now obvious that everybody can see it, that you're not comfortable when other friends are around the person you're dating. So make sure that the person you have decided to date or that you want to date is someone who's sociable, someone who's flexible enough to relate with your friends, to accommodate your family members, is someone who's outgoing, is someone who's fashionable if you're particular about that, is someone who's presentable to your friends, is someone who you are attracted to. I tell people that if you've been friends with someone for a long time and all of a sudden they're asking you out and you're beginning to wonder whether or not they like you, they probably don't like you. Because the truth is, when a girl or a guy likes you, you would definitely know. So if you're questioning whether or not the person likes you, then I don't think you should go into a relationship with such person. Because I believe in the entire period or duration of time that you guys are going to be in that relationship, you're going to be questioning whether or not they like you. So be sure that the person you want to go into a relationship clearly likes you. Also, you want to be sure that you are attracted to that person. Now, it depends on the level of attraction. I've heard people say they weren't attracted to their partner immediately they met, but they had some sort of likeness towards them. But as they went along in the relationship, they began to develop more interest in them and they became more attracted to them. So while you might not be sexually attracted to the person at the early stage of your relationship, the truth is, as you go along, if there are people you really like, if they flow well with you, naturally you begin to develop some sort of attraction towards them. But first you want to clarify that they are likable, that there are people who like you and you also like them. You also want to be sure that the person you're going into a relationship is kind. Trust me, there are a lot of insane people out here. Honestly, you know, I was in a bus one day and somebody was begging. That's what I do is, when I don't have money to give, I just tell them Alabama, sir, like God will provide, and I move on. I don't even know if that's the meaning of that thing, but I know I picked it up from somewhere years ago. So I just say Alabama, sir, and they go. If I have something to give, I give. But there was this day in the bus, this guy was just, if you see the way he was shouting at the beggars, like, you know, and I I was wondering. I had to raise my eyes and look at the guy like, I mean, if you don't have money to give them, don't give them. You don't have to curse them or say something that is not nice because they are begging. I understand that some people, especially in Lagos, they fend these things. It's not like there's anything wrong with them. They're just lazy to work. But regardless, if you have to give, give. If you don't have to give, just move along and wish them well. So there are different things that you want to look out for based on your preference as an individual, things you should look out for when choosing a partner. These are some of the ones that I'll be taking this week. Next week, we'll explore more traits that you should look out for in a partner before you decide to date them. Till we meet again next week, remain chaste, focused, and purposeful. I love you. God loves you more. Bye.